one of my favorite things, especially about you, Aaron, too, is the love for Pennsylvania. There's a lot of people that really love Pennsylvania. I respect that about you, Aaron, because you really do love
I love Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. You're always trying to recruit me to come out. It hasn't worked yet, but I do respect the love you have for the state.
One day.
One
day it'll happen.
What do you love about Pennsylvania? Because there's a lot of things. I mean, I think for a long time, Pennsylvania, Michigan, were kind of those two states that if someone complained, those are like the two that popped up.
I don't know. I think the biggest thing for me about Pennsylvania is it's just home. I think it's just cool to my family loves venison. They love deer. They love the atmosphere around it, like not just deer hunting, but like state parks and camping and hiking and all the things that also revolve around the outdoors and hunting too. But there's something about killing something in your home state and putting it in your freezer and then like kind of living off that for the rest of the year, as long as you shoot enough of them. They go pretty quick in the Hepler house.
Yeah.
A lot of Mississippi pot roast for the little girl,
Yeah, and you're cooking up some good venison for us this week too. That's always something we always look forward to. And before we get too far into this, obviously you've been on the show here before. This is the third annual Aaron podcast. But give a brief introduction. You write for the website. I know you have some other projects you're working on.
Yep.
Let people know who you are, and we'll get into all.
So born and bred in Pennsylvania, not far from the show. But I grew up in hunting, bow hunting, and I hunted anything I could, since I was a young kid with my dad and my uncles and good family friends, which is really what hunting to me is really all about. Like it is something about like success and killing something and putting it in your freezer, that kind of stuff. But the camaraderie is the best part, which is one reason I love to come out to the show with you guys and just hang out for the week. And I know the first year I came, it was like 2 days, and I'm like, that wasn't enough. That was, I need to go out longer.
Has that changed after you've done?
No,
two of them and gone through the 9-day span?
No, because I think it's cool because we've built this relationship over the last, I guess it's been like 3.5 years really that I've been working with you guys. And, I think just getting to know you guys over that time, and I don't get to see that often. So it's cool to get to catch up after. I mean, it's crazy how many stories we get to tell and we've never heard before or whatever that, even things that just happened last year. It's good to catch up and hang out and, and we're around people that, this whole show is about people that love the same things we love. So that's cool to, interact with them, with you guys as a team. I think that's fun. So.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, we have like another surprise guest too, with Chad being on here.
Yeah, it is kind of surprise.
Yeah.
I heard the over/under for my spotlight guest appearance was set to 1. That's pretty low.
Yeah, and I thought that was a hard line. I thought that was, but I know you like to be the dark horse. We should have known better if we set this. You must have eavesdropped and caught that.
Yeah.
But well, no, I want to hear how your past season went. The year before, you had an incredible season, and I think this is just the reality of everyone that hunts. There's good seasons, there's rough seasons, there's seasons that don't go unplanned or that go.
Yeah.
Things don't go how they planned or how they're planned. So let's hear it.
Overall, I actually had a good. I wouldn't say that I had a bad season. It depends on how you measure it, right? Like if you measure success by the only thing that you like, if you measure it by like the biggest buck you shot or that you were successful during a season, and that's maybe that sounds like a loser. I don't know, but I did have a good season. I had a lot of great encounters. I had a lot of great hunts. I saw a lot of bucks, a lot of deer. During the season, during the bow season, minus spike bucks, I saw 15 bucks that were legal. For PA, we have the 3-point on one side restriction, and a few of those were respectable bucks that anybody would be really pretty happy to shoot. And we've had the conversation about, I don't know how far you want to get into it, but I did hit a real big 10-pointer with my bow, and he was the buck, one of the top bucks that I was chasing, and that didn't work out. I don't know if you want to talk about that or not, but
yeah, I guess. What are some key things that you learned from that experience? And I think everyone's been there to some point, and maybe they can take something away from the story.
I think to that point I was kind of humbled and like ready to shoot something because it was November and I already had put 10 days in the stand, and again they were good days, but it was a cool day like that. 9 o'clock in the morning. I knew I'd have like a little bit of time to hunt. But I climbed a tree. I picked a tree that was kind of stout. There weren't a lot of trees in this spot, which when you go in there and scout, that's one thing that I always mess up on is like, there's plenty of trees. I'll just come in here in the dark and find a tree. And that is like the worst thing you can do scouting. Like, I don't know if you need to climb the tree and put a thumbtack way high so somebody can't see it and you can just go, look your head up and find that tree that you want to sit in. You got to find some way to mark at least 1 or 2 trees in an area for different winds that you can just go to and climb in, because
really good piece
when
of
you
advice.
get in there in the dark, the tree looks different without the same backdrop. It just never works out, and that can ruin your hunt. Like, there could be stuff in your way of places the deer are coming from, whatever it is, or you don't have enough cover. But I picked a tree and I climbed in the tree and I started getting set, and I picked a tree that had some cover, so there were 2 not saplings, but 2 8-inch, 10-inch trees behind it, and they had all these branches coming off of them. Didn't want them in my way, so I started to bend them out of the way or whatever, and I hit one of the branches against the tree that I was on and had my other hand on the tree, and all of a sudden I hear this scratching and a squirrel ran over my hand, scratched me up, and fell on the ground. And I was like, what? I was freaking out. Then I realized the tree's hollow. And I'm knock on the tree, and I'm like, I can't stay in this tree. Like, if it was not going to be windy, I would have been it's fine.
Right.
But I'm like, I'm not staying in this tree. I'm going to get blown out, So I climbed down out of the tree, walked over to another one, and then your pack is unloaded, and you don't want to cinch everything back down, so you're dragging stuff around, and your ropes are getting caught and stuff, and I found another tree, and I'm like, this isn't the right tree. And I knew there was one other tree, and it's hard to get my arms around, which is not a great tree for a saddle hunt. Mm-hmm. And there was no cover around it, right? Just a bean pole, telephone pole tree. And I'm like, well, this is it. And I have 10 minutes before it gets light, and I know deer are really pretty quick in there to come out of where they feed to come in through that area. I know I have kind of a short window. So I climb the tree. I'm like, this is going to have to be good. And I didn't get that high in the tree, because if I knew I got too high, I wouldn't be able to shoot through any cover. And I didn't want to be too low, because I didn't want to be too eye shot of the deer. So I was probably 12 feet, which I've killed deer at 12 feet before or whatever. It's not too bad, but without cover, it's kind of tough. But I was trying to use some of the low laurels for cover. So if I got up above them, I would be skylined. So I surprisingly got set before it got light. And as soon as it got light, there's 2 bedding areas in the area. I've described one as kind of like an oval spot of brush behind me. And just to my left, there's a bedding point. It's not really a point. It's just kind of wide tapering terrain, I guess, and it's pretty thick, but does like to bed on it. So there's a bunch of scrapes around the bottom of this thing, and so it gets light. I see a 7-pointer behind me, right above the top of this brushy bedding area, and I could tell he was kind of cruising the edge of it for does. So I grunted at him, and he kind of looked at me and did I'm going to go back to what I was doing. I grunted again. He looked at me I'm going to go back to what I was doing. I grunted at him again. Now he's kind of bobbing his head, what am I seeing here? And a spike buck runs in through between these 2 bedding areas, to the grunt call. And the 7-pointer's oh, there he is. And he chases this spike off, and he's grunting the whole way, hair up on his. It was cool to watch, I was going to shoot that 7-pointer because he wasn't a bad buck. And but he took that deer away. And then maybe 5 or 10 minutes later, a doe drops off this other bedding area, walks through, and now the sun is up, and 10 minutes go by, and I see shadows of antlers dropping off this point. And I'm like, well, who knows what it is? It's just shadows, but I knew it was a buck. And I'm trying to see him, and then the first thing that I saw was that G4 that's on his right side was real long, and I was like, oh, man, that's that 10-pointer with the G4. And he gets to a scrape that I had a camera on at the bottom, or I didn't have a camera on it, but because there's 2 scrapes. He passed my camera, and I did get him on camera. and he's making a scrape. He's just antlers in the licking branch, and he's just tearing it up. Maybe 5-10 minutes.
How far? What's the distance there?
He was 85 yards at that point, 85 yards. And I'm like, what am I going to do? I have no cover from the way he's coming. Like, I'm going to get screwed. And I knew what buck it was. So then that, you don't look at their antlers after you see them, but like now I know what buck it is, and I'm like, getting ready. And everything was happening so fast, and I kind of like, he dropped off this scrape, and he was going to go down the mountain, from just straight down the mountain instead of paralleling it towards me. So I growled at him with the grunt tube, and he like flipped his head around and just was like, hair stood up on his back, and he's coming that stiff leg walk real quick. So the only thing between me and him was one laurel bush, and he was getting there fast. So I drew my bow, and that was that day. That was around that time we had that cold front in November. So it was pretty chilly in the morning. I think it was like 28 degrees or something at the time, with and windy. And I had a face mask on, like a First Light, the balaclava thing, and it was in my way. And I'm like, oh, this deer's gonna be my 20, and I'm like at full draw, and I'm pulling the face mask out of my way. And by the time I like put my eyes back on him, I thought he was in my 20, but he was really more probably like 30 yards, because he had just taken like 2 or 3 steps, and he was quartered slightly away, not much, almost broadside. And I should have stopped him. And in my mind, he wasn't walking that fast, and he was probably going a little quicker than I thought. So I let the arrow go, and I ended up hitting him back, and hindsight real low. And I thought that I liver shot him. And I was like, I can't believe I did that, And I almost got a second shot at him, because he didn't even know it hit him. Like, he just at first he kind of like stood there, and he's like looking around, like, and his hair standing up on his back still, like something just hit me. And I went to knock another arrow, and when he heard the click of the arrow, he kind of like, he looked up at me and kind of, he actually like stumbled a little bit. Like, I don't know if I made him dizzy or what happened, but he stumbled a little bit and kind of like trotted off. Didn't really look overly hurt, but wasn't hunched over, and like didn't seem like a gut shot. But so I thought I hit him in the liver. So I waited 8 hours, and I actually went home. I took the 4 mile out of there and went home, and got myself collected, got some stuff to look for the deer. In the meantime, my buddy Troy was hunting with me that day, and he was like, well, I'll get down, I'll help you. I'm like, no, just like, I'm not going to go till like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It was like 8 o'clock. I'm like, I'm not going to go till 2 or 3 to look for this deer. Just hunt, like, enjoy yourself. And he was seeing lots of bucks that day. He had already seen, I think he called like 3 or 4 small bucks in already.
A lot of calling, a lot of vocalization
it was
for you guys.
Very vocal, and we do, like, that time of year is great. Like, and he actually blind grunted. I think he blind grunted like a spike and then 2 small 6-pointers in. But it's cool, like, getting to interact like that with deer, because it doesn't happen that often, And I've had a lot of luck with snort wheezing at deer up there. But I get home, and as soon as I pull in my driveway, he calls me, and I'm like, well, A, he either fell out of his tree, or B, he killed something. And I'm like, what's up? I was like, did you kill? And he's like, dude, he has a film of this, and he's like, I just shot one. First recurve buck, right? Wow. And he watched it drop. That I showed you that video of him. It's 7 yards, and he just pinwheels the thing. It took a curved run and ran into a tree, and that was it, And it was really cool hunt. That was his first buck he finally caught on video. Like, he's tried a couple times self-filming, but his first buck that he caught on video, and his first recurve deer. And it was a really cool experience. So some of my other friends were like, oh, we'll help you look for your deer, and we'll help Troy pack out, and then we'll go look for yours. So that's what we did. We went in, we saw Troy, and actually, so we hung out with Troy for a little while, and by that time I think we were 8 hours in, and we tracked my deer for like 150 yards. We had blood, and it wasn't great. It was spotty, but you could follow it.
Like dark liver blood? Like what kind of blood?
It wasn't bubbly. It wasn't pink, but you couldn't really. It was just red. You know, not like maroon or anything. You're like, oh, it like looks like good blood. And actually, where I first hit him, there was like a decent amount, and I think it was because he was standing there. I probably hit a capillary or something, you know, whatever. But
and for everyone listening, he's a nurse too.
yeah. Sorry, yeah. I probably hit like a small blood vessel or something like that, and you know, you can hit small arterial capillaries or things like that. But there was actually like a decent amount of blood there, and my arrow was covered. I was like, oh, maybe I didn't hit him as bad. You know, sometimes you're like, your mind plays tricks on you. I was like, maybe I didn't hit him. Maybe I shot him, made a good shot. So we followed for like 150 yards and found a bed. Now it was windy, so the blood to the bed was dry, like, you know, like you could scrape it off or off the leaves and stuff. When we got to the bed, on the other side of the bed, the blood was wet. And I'm like, oh, that's not good. Walked in to look at my arrow, and he got up, you know, without actually bumping it. We didn't see a deer. We didn't hear a deer, nothing. And, you know, I'm like, dude, I don't want to keep pushing him. Like, either come back tomorrow or, you know, I'll get a dog. So I called a dog tracker, and he was pretty like, I told him where I thought that I hit the deer, and I'm like, he's like, that sounds like liver to me, man. Like, he looked at the arrow, he looked at pictures of blood, I described it to him. He consulted with a couple of his other, you know, those trackers, they're always texting each other, and they're like, to me it sounds like liver. And he's like, well, that deer will be dead, you know, we'll go in there tonight. And I'm like, I don't got time tomorrow morning. Well, let's go tonight. And I was like, all right. Like, so by the time we got back in there,
and it was 4 miles in.
It was where the deer was, 4 miles. Yeah.
It's a long hike in, long hike out.
Long
hike out.
Yeah, you're at 12 miles by the time you get back. The second time without.
Yeah. Well, so I did. So the first day. Well, the first day of, because I went back. I came in for the morning hunt. Went back out. Came back in. Helped Troy get his buck out. Came back in with the blood tracker. So, and then I had, you know, we had scouted for tracked the blood trail. I did 20 miles in the first day. Ooh. On bike and foot. Mm-hmm. So, mostly on foot. So I get the blood tracker, and now I'm 8 hours past the last time we looked for him. So this is 16 hours of this deer being hit. And I'm like, well, he's probably dead by now. So the dog got on the blood, and he could have been following our tracks, but, he didn't falter. Like, he was on. We did a good job of staying side to side of the blood trail, so you don't want to walk on the blood trail or anything like that. We did a good job of staying side to side of it. And that dog followed that thing straight to the bed that we found, and then followed it another 50 yards. And then he kind of started he's kind of like losing interest. And, he explained to us plenty of times on how there's that gland between the deer's hooves and that releases stress hormone. That's what the dog is really following, not blood. And he's like, I don't know, the deer's hurt. He's like, but I don't know how he couldn't be. Like, it has to be liver, And he was like, he saw the blood. He's like, I'm convinced it's liver. And we kind of just kept doing circles, and the dog would get excited and then kind of lose excitement and then get excited and lose excitement. And we got down to this logging road, and the dog kind of was like pushing to go downhill. And he's like, I don't think it's down there. There's no blood, And so we just kept doing circles and just decided to call it. It was like midnight by the time we got, so I'm, 4 or 5 hours into looking for the deer and using a dog and doing all the things that you are. To me, I'm obligated to the animal to do that. So I was like really down in the dumps, and the next day my wife is like, "What do you need to do to like make yourself feel better a little bit? Because you're really like, you're really dragging." And I had one friend that was texting me. Most of these guys I've met are like, barring a few, my good buddy Jared is a friend that I work with, but the other guys are people that I've met on the game lands and have just really connected with, and I've hunted with a lot up there, and we have a good network built. It's kind of nice because like, they're gonna respect you, and you guys can share spots and deer and whatever. It's kind of cool. But I have one buddy that I met 6 years ago on the game lands, and he's like, "Dude, what are you gonna do? Like, I feel you for it." And he's like, he's like one of those people that just gets excited for you if if you do something good, and he's just a good guy. You'll meet him. I think. Well, actually, you've met him here before, but you'll meet him here this week, hopefully sometime. But he's like, "Man, you got to do something," because he could tell I was like bumming too, and I was like, he's like, "I got time. He's an electrician, another electrician. So I got time, and I was like, "All right, you got time. What time can you be here?" I was like, "I'll be there in 20 minutes." He was already ready to go. So my wife is like, "Yeah, go look for the deer." So we went, and I was like, I got to have a plan. I can't just be, because I was like nervous and anxious about it, So I'm like, we're going to check all my cameras first because they're kind of on the way, Yeah, I mean, back and forth a little bit, but I'm like, there's a good chance that if he's alive, he came back up here or whatever. So I checked 7 cameras. I didn't check all the cameras. I checked 7 of them, though, where I thought he'd be. And not on any of the cameras. So we just kind of gridded in some areas where I knew there were some good buck bedding areas, and didn't find any sign. So we kind of just kept gridding along in the direction that he went. And I was like, well, at some point, I just need to scout for a big buck. And I got along a ridge, like a steeper line, and I found a buck bed, rubs in it and stuff. And I'm like, oh, okay. Go to the next one. Oh, now I'm starting to mark this stuff. Oh, I need to at least scout this in the spring or whatever. I get to a third bed, and I pick my foot up to like walk over to him, and there's blood under my foot. And I'm like, holy crap. And I'm like, it's in the right direction. Like, that's got to be him. And I backtrack to those other beds, and there's blood in all the beds. I don't know how I missed it, but all 3 of the beds, he must have just kind of been shifting around in there.
And how far was that from?
That was like 30 yards from where the dog was pointing to go down the hill.
I follow some of those dog trackers on Facebook, and they're always exactly what you just said of like the dog wanted to go that way, but I didn't think so, and then we were just about done. We do one more loop, and then a lot of times the dog is right.
So now the blood's dry, and then we find wet blood again. And I'm like, son of a gun. Like, now that side of the hill was a little wind protected, so there, I don't know, maybe whatever, some kind of chance. But we ended up tracking the deer maybe down 150 yard or 150 foot hill, and lost blood at the bottom of the hill because it was just little specks at that point. We lost blood at the bottom of the hill, but we got a good direction. We found a lot of tracks in dry, and he was still digging up leaves, so we could kind of follow that a little bit, but started to lose that too because it was starting to get really rocky where we were going. And we ended up dropping down some benches, finding some great buck sign, whatever, and we worked up these benches, and we got to this big flat below a cliff. And he's like, you just stay here. I'm going to work down to the end of this flat where it pinches against the hill and see if there's any chance he's bedded there. So I get a text from him. I just kicked 5 deer up. And then all of a sudden I hear him yelling, I got him. I'm like, what? So I start running to him through the woods. I'm like, holy crap, he's dead. And I hear something, and I look over, and there's the buck that I hit running full bore over these giant boulders 30 yards away, just like bounding over these boulders. And it's him because you can see the G4, and he comes up, he's like, that's the biggest public land buck I've ever seen. I'm like, oh. And I'm, he's probably like, I'm conservative. He's probably like 135, 140, somewhere in there. And he's like, you sure that deer's not 170? I'm like, I don't know. He's not 170. I mean, when you see he's a big deer, and as far as body size, and like he was a big buck. So we were like, well, maybe that was like his death run, because we did find blood. Like, that was the other thing that confirmed it was the deer. Like, okay, well, are you sure you saw the G4? Like, well, there was blood there. So, like, you know, and it was little specks still. And I figured he probably got up, and when he started running, opened up whatever little wound he had. So he ended up, he's like, we're going to get this deer. He's like, that's his death run. If he comes back here, just tackle him. And dude, we were like, he's
like
jacked up. Oh, yeah, he's a great guy. So he goes down around, he circles around where the buck went, and he texts me. He's like, I see him going up a side hill, and he is cruising. Like, he just went straight up that hunt with no problems, like not stumbling, nothing. And I'm like, I don't think that deer's going to die.
Yeah.
And we tried to get blood again and tried to find sign, but once he got up over that hill and onto that flat, that big wide, I'm like, anybody's guess now. Like, he's got like 4 miles of flat to, you know, just big section. And I'm like, I think that's it, man. I think I got some closure on it. I'm like, I think, like, we've kind of exhausted what we can, like. So we called it at that time, and it was kind of hard, but like at the same time, like, I knew I did everything I could. Now I'm like 26 miles into looking for this deer or something. Like, it was a lot of miles looking for the deer, and just.
So, going back to the shot and like going through that mental state of being nervous, not thinking you were going to have an opportunity, like, what would you do different in that entire process? Like, was it target acquisition? Was it your anchor? Like, what?
No, it was buck fever completely. Yeah. Like, I get jacked up. I mean, I think if you lose a little bit, I think you need to learn to control buck fever a little bit. I don't know how to do it necessarily. I think there's some things that could help you. Like, you know, I think I think breathing helps. I think the big trendy thing of like working out and then taking a couple shots is big, because like your heart rate's and I'm not talking like, if you're going to do that, you really need to get your heart rate up, because I'm sure I'm cranking when there's a deer coming in. I know I am, because I can feel it in my face, you know. But I think it's important, as trendy as it is. I think it does help. Like, if you're you know, finding a way to stimulate that. Now, I think, you know, the other thing is you're counting your chickens before they hatch too. You're like imagining yourself wrapping your hands around the antlers and like, I can't believe I'm seeing this buck, and I can't believe I put myself in the, you know, whatever it is. But I think it was fully buck fever, because if I was thinking clearly, my face mask would have been down before I drew my bow, and I would have maybe even picked a better tree, or, you know, all that kind of stuff. And I think that stuff doesn't help too. Like, when things start to go wrong, you need to find a way to regroup. Like, I picked the wrong tree, so just like regroup in your mind and just be like, it's fine. Like, I got this. But then you start being like, oh, this went wrong. Oh, this is gonna go wrong.
It's easy to throw a
and then you
pity
just
party
start
for
to
yourself.
Well, and it's not even a pity party. You just start to spiral and think you're gonna do something.
Yeah.
Like, you're more aware that you're about to do something wrong. You know what I mean? Like, it's just one of those days kind of things. You know.
I think that's partially, I don't know, maybe it's an industry thing or a media thing, but like, we all have this perspective of every single thing that we do, from the time that we get out of our truck to the time that we pick our bow up. Like, everything has to go right to kill this deer, because the odds are so far stacked against us. And usually they are. Yeah. But dude, it doesn't have to be perfect every time.
Exactly. But the shot acquisition for that deer was not bad. Like, I ranged him wrong, and I didn't stop him. That was my fault with the shot, right? The shot itself, if I had stopped that deer and if I would have used my 30-yard pin, he'd have been pinwheeled.
Right.
Because my settling the pin, my putting the peep on, my squeezing the shot, that part was fine. But if you're shooting for a deer that's at 30 with your 20 pin, you're automatically hitting him low, and he took an extra step. And that deer's a long deer. Like, a step is far for a deer that size, you know, especially when he's moving as fast as he wasn't like trotting, but he was moving faster than you imagine. Everything kind of slows down in those moments. But my shot was great. And I definitely would have made a better shot had I done those two things. Made sure my range was correct, and made sure that I had stopped him. And I don't always love to stop deer, but when they're 30 yards, it's kind of necessary, you know, especially if they're moving like that.
What was the date of this hunt? Do you remember?
November 1st.
It was November 1st.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a great morning.
Yeah.
I'm more of an end of October guy. I like that end of October. That's where a lot of my best encounters happen, and I personally have a lot of success with encounters during the day and pictures during the day as well. In that last week of October, the first week of November in the area is really great. I do think that's why most guys take their vacation, is because they do have the best encounters there during that time. And the data kind of speaks for itself. Like, that's when the biggest bucks get shot, all that stuff. But I just enjoy being in the woods, so I love October.
Mm-hmm.
But we didn't really have a great October this year. There wasn't like that. I don't really like straight cold fronts where it's cold for a week. I like it when it's cold for like a day or two, and then it's warm, and then it's cold, and then it's warm. And I like it when it's contracting. I guess when the weather contracts like that. But overall, it was a good learning experience, and I ended up shooting a small buck with my gun, because when I get to gun season, it's not like, oh, it's over for me. But my family really enjoys venison, and I don't want to not give them that, and I really enjoy cooking venison. So I'm like, I was on my buddy's farm, and I just shot the first legal buck that came out, and made me happy. So
yeah, that's fun. All right, I want to do a little rapid fire here. This will be a semi-rapid fire. Here's one that I want to ask you. I'm in the Midwest, okay? You ask me all the time to come out here. Give me the pitch. Give me the 1 minute, 2 minute pitch why I need to leave the Midwest to come hunt Pennsylvania, big woods, public land.
Well, as Cameron always says, it's because Aaron Hepler's here.
That's okay. That's a really good first reason.
Oh, no. Pennsylvania gets a bad knock because it has probably, I don't know, it's always Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania competing for who has the most hunters, right? And there is an awful lot of hunting pressure here. We have a lot of public land in Pennsylvania. Collectively, it's like 4 million acres or something like that between state forest and game lands and municipal properties and things like that. And, the northwest corner has the most, the vastest public land that we have, and it's pretty mountainous there or whatever. But it's kind of, can't really say it's a sleeper state because people talk about Pennsylvania a lot, and I think it's because we have a lot of hunters. But the size of our bucks are getting better and better every year.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people are happier and happier with how things are going. Now, people that live in Pennsylvania complain about management in Pennsylvania, and just like every other state does, like, oh, there's no big bucks in Pennsylvania. I can't seem to get on deer. You need to hunt private to shoot big deer. I even have people that I know pretty well be like, there's no deer on private. The game commission manages it, or no deer on public. The game commission manages it wrong. Honestly, they do a pretty darn good job. Like, as far as like habitat management, they're really increasing the amount of burns that they do. They're increasing the amount of cuts that they do. And the cuts are huge because people love hunting clear cuts now. They've learned that, like, it's not just the big opening that got ruined, and my old deer stand is not ruined. We're used to hunting big timber. Everybody used to woods. Now you cut it down, and people are like, I don't know what to do. Obviously, it is a massive chunk of food. Like, I don't remember what officer, or I read something in state, but the amount of browse in like 100 square acres of clear cut is like insane compared to mature timber.
It's like 100 times. It's something crazy.
It's like 100 times increased.
At least 10.
Yeah. So it's wild, whatever it is. But the problem is because people have learned about clear cuts. Any clear cuts get a whole lot of pressure around them now. But now they're making more, and it's kind of the one nice thing is it is spreading the deer herd out a little bit better, and you have big bucks. Not like all your big bucks aren't in one spot; they're further apart, and people can spread out a little bit better that way. Because they're I'll go hunt this one, and because I know this one's getting some people, and now it's starting to spread the pressure out. So I think the pressure's a little lighter in some areas. And if you make yourself hunt during the week in Pennsylvania, there's not a lot of people out, and that's pretty much anywhere.
I will say, hunted quite a few states. public land, different areas. I know this is rapid fire, but I got to interject this to give.
Let's hear it, yeah.
He gave you the pro. I'm going to give you a con. Okay?
I'd love to hear it.
So, Kansas, Wisconsin, Kentucky, West Virginia, Ohio, Pennsylvania, whatever. And I'm the kind of guy that if I see somebody in a parking lot, if they're doing something like near their vehicle, getting dressed, messing with their gear, whatever, like I want to come, I want to pull in, I want to stop, I want to talk to them, look at what they have to try to figure out what kind of person they are, like
a little judgy, but okay. I was kidding.
You don't do the same?
No.
Okay.
I don't have Pennsylvania Public.
Well, I'm trying to read the guy without asking him a bunch of questions.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And then if the conversation goes that way, we start talking. I want to figure that stuff out.
Yeah.
If he's going in a certain direction or whatever, 9 times out of 10, I'm going on to the next spot. Mm-hmm. Like if there's a car parked there,
100%.
If I don't see a person, I know the car's parked there, I don't even stop. Next spot. So I come out here. Was this 2 years ago?
Yeah, 2 years. 2 years ago.
2 years ago. Hunting with Aaron and Clint, turkey season. Okay, long weekend, and they're talking about these pieces. Oh, there's not going to be any pressure here. This is going to be okay here. So we pull into this parking lot with first one there, and there's some cars or vehicles going up and down the road,
yeah.
right? And we have there's 3 of us. And I can't remember whose truck we were in.
We were in your truck.
My truck.
Yeah.
So we have the tailgate down. Our turkey vests are like on the ground. We're like getting geared up, trying to make a plan, like looking at a map, trying to figure out. This dude wheels in like this mini. I'm pretty sure it was a minivan, wasn't it?
He was in a rape van. Yeah.
Dude wheels in on a minivan. The door comes flying open. The van's not even stopped yet. He has a shotgun slung over his shoulder. He slams the door. Yeah. The sliding door comes open. He grabs his vest, and boom, the dude takes off. And I'm like, what the hell just happened?
And keep in mind that the particular piece that we were on isn't all that big.
No, it's not that big.
So I think it's different if you like pull into a parking lot and there's 10 cars there and you have
a bunch of ground
and 12,000 acres. But this was like
that dude was on a mission.
This is like is like spot we were at is like 200 acres. It's not very big. Yeah, it's not that big. The chunk that we were on. But yeah, that guy, he wasn't stopping for anybody.
I was like, what just happened? That's the only time I've ever encountered that in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, as far as like hunting pressure, I've had a couple instances where like I accidentally walked under somebody's stand and, like, oh, I got to move to a different area or whatever.
That happens everywhere.
Yeah, you can't really avoid it. I mean, let's be real. You have all these hunting applications now and stuff. You can't. There's no secrets.
There's no hidden spot.
Like there's no like, oh, there's this hidden point. Like no, everybody can see that.
And everyone can find it and go walk it.
Yeah.
Which leads into another one. What do you think is the most overrated hunting tactic? You mentioned like finding the honey hole, but what do you think is just the most overrated hunting tactic?
I think for Pennsylvania is like the hunting public has become so popular, and like their style or whitetail adrenaline, like the spot and stalk and be on foot and stuff. I don't think it's overrated, but I think you have to have the right application for it. And honestly, walking through the timber, you're not getting in the hunting season. You're not getting close to a mature buck walking around. I mean, you could still hunt. You could do the snow thing, where you're, if you have some snow, you could track quietly or whatever. But like this year, I had a guy just like sneaking around with a crossbow, and I was telling Chad this morning, I could hear this guy for like 100 yards. I'm like, dude, you aren't fooling anything. It's on crunchy leaves in thick timber, like. And then I could see him from 80. When I finally saw him, it was, I could see him coming for 80 yards. I'm like, dude, if I can see you and hear you like that, and his wind was wrong. He was walking east with a southwest wind on the north side of a ridge. So he's walking towards the northeast. Like the wind is blowing directly to wherever he's going, and he's kind of just cruising along there. And he was ready to shoot too, like, stocks on his shoulder. He's ready to bloop. And I'm like, and then he saw me just like, oh, sorry, and turns around and walks the other way. But I'm like, you have to have the right application for what you're doing. Like the same thing doesn't work everywhere. You have to, if you're going to go do that through a low cut, clear cut or something like that, where you can see them for a ways off or something, then maybe you could do that if you have like windy conditions where you're not making a whole lot of noise and your wind is right, that kind of stuff. But like I think the most overrated tactic is not applying the correct tactic to the correct area that you're going.
That's fair. Now, what about the most underrated hunting tactic in your opinion? What's sneaky good?
I think the access thing is maybe a little underrated, mostly because it's a pain in the butt. Like Clint loves to do the kayak thing, and I think people don't want to take the. I don't really have a lot of experience with that because I don't have a lot of water around me to do that kind of thing. But I don't think people take as good advantage of it, and I think that shows too because people kill real big bucks that way when you have that sneaky kind of access. But yeah, that's probably the answer to that.
You've read a lot of whitetail books. What's one of your favorite all-time whitetail books?
If I'm going to point somebody new to whitetail hunting, it's probably Mapping Trophy Bucks by Brad Herndon. Yeah. I think that gives you a good base knowledge of how to use contour and terrain. I think a lot of the stuff that he has in that book now is kind of like you talk about hunting saddles all the time. Like, I mean, it's probably the easiest thing to find in a map. So maybe not worth hunting anymore, but you should know how to do it. So if you can learn how deer are pinched, you can apply it to more micro spots and in person a little bit better when you're scouting, learning about edges and things like that.
Very good. Well, I think they're about to sing the national anthem for day 3 at the Great American Outdoor Show. Stop by the booth in the Archery Hall. Lift 4K is available for pre-sale. And stop by if you're in the area. We'd love to see you. Aaron would love to hear hunting stories. I love hearing the hunting stories. And where can people follow with what you have going on?
You can find me on Instagram. It's Aaron_Hepler. You can find me on the Exodus Outdoor Gear. I've been writing for you guys now for 3 years. And
greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. You can find some of my stuff on Truth from the Stand, too.
And maybe some more stuff coming down the pipeline, too?
Maybe some more stuff coming down the pipeline soon. I'm excited about it. Hopefully it works out. I have some pieces coming out, so we'll see.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Aaron. We really appreciate it. I look forward to doing this already for next year.
Yeah.
4th annual. Come soon.
Thanks, guys.